Okay, so here we're going to discuss something about developing effective community network analysis tools according to a new subject discipline within psychology that we are proposing called visualization psychology. Now, you might ask yourself, why do we need this? What questions do we need to ask? Why do we need a new discipline? Why can't we just have psychology and visualization as two separate disciplines? What is the specific kind of problems we are trying to address? So I'm going to try to at least touch on some of these possible reasons. So let me start by kind of highlighting some of the problems that psychology is facing. Psychology, from your perspective, might be orientated around more cognitive approaches, but psychology is actually a very diverse subject area, and it's got clinical, it's got health, and it's got many other aspects that you might be less familiar with from a visualization perspective. So the DSM model is a clinical classification model, a DSM-5, and it categorizes people on the basis of symptomology, schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, bipolar. These all have very specific symptoms. So that's a huge problem in psychology in terms of we're just focused on a very specific symptom-based approach. We're not looking at other factors. Now, there are some evidence to suggest that we're looking in the wrong place as psychologists. We don't have the tools, and we don't really, a lot of psychologists aren't well connected with visualization community. So your kind of perspectives on data visualization aren't clear outside of that small cognitive community. So mental health may not be just a simple symptomology approach. It may be based on broader networks of people. So what is the problem? Community network analysis is advancing in areas of sociology, geography, but it is largely undiscovered in the realms of clinical health psychology. Psychologists in these particular areas are simply not aware of these approaches. Health psychology is limited to simple quantitative and qualitative analysis that explore questions based on simple regression and other type modeling. This is insufficient, in my opinion. Psychologists cannot currently perform more complex nonlinear visualizations, more complex patterns. They can't visualize community factors, and we can't model things like social media, friends, gym, neighbors, workspaces, etc. So we can just continue in collaborating with visualization if we know someone from the visualization community. However, this leads to a lot of disparity between subject areas. There's not much communication beyond that simple cognitive visualization communities, and you also need to know visualization colleagues. So if you're not exposed to these things, you just will not know how to do like graph theory type community networks. So maybe a more useful approach might be to have a visualization psychology subject, a combined subject area, which shares ideas in a more coherent, comprehensive way. This empowers researchers from a psychology perspective. I'm focused on a psychology as a psychologist, but this is going to be a multi-facet approach where a visualization can also learn from psychology, but that's why I'm focused in on psychology, because this is my strengths. So it empowers research from both disciplines, and it strengthens disciplines respectively. We've only got 8 minutes, so we can't really go into those reasons why that is the case in a lot of detail. Now, using community networks for visualization, complex networks, typically based on graph theory, as we understand, and we can model things using these community networks for various peers, medias, online influences, and cultural influences. This obviously uses a Cohen's K and builds a network on edges and nodes as some of you might be familiar with. This, I believe, can be really, really useful. As a health psychologist, a health cognitive psychologist, I feel this could be very, very useful in terms of building the models of mental health for tomorrow. So this is a huge thing. So community networks, applications, there's huge social, clinical, environmental, health applications. Beyond that, there's also in healthcare more generally data intelligence workflows which can aid community healthcare professionals. So this is even going beyond health psychology. The monitoring and managing of mental health in society, conducting various operations, epidemic management. So we know with coronavirus, understanding workflows, understanding movement, understanding how people are connected. This can facilitate contact tracing, risk assessment, and so forth, which are really, really needed right now. I did mention it's supposed to be something that is facilitating both subject areas. Psychology is supposed to benefit, and also data visualization. Psychology can inform and has informed historically visualization about memory, attention, bias, and experimentation. So psychology is very good at experimentation, which controlling studies, which visualization can also benefit from. But again, this communication, I believe, is better as its own discipline, its own separate workshops, conferences, etc., where more progress can be made in terms of making a more comprehensive subject discipline. So that's all that I'm basically going to touch on with this as a kind of final statement about these approaches. I think we can conclude that a coherent conversation about visualization and psychology in the context of health psychology is certainly useful. I think we can conclude that there are possibly benefits to both communities in having a more inclusive subject discipline around this. And I certainly think as a psychologist, from a psychology perspective, having these tools, not just having to rely on visualization colleagues to help us with our data analysis and visualization, we can definitely improve our prediction models and workflows using these ideas and tools. So there are potentially huge benefits from a psychological perspective, bringing in these subject, more of a connection between these subject disciplines. Okay, thank you very much.